on the pod. Yeah, so you have a very good hockey team down there in Florida. Have you been taking in the Florida Panthers? Have you been riding high to the Stanley Cup, Leroy Hoard?
Absolutely. I mean, probably the best thing about it is they took the Stanley Cup in the Atlantic Ocean, which I guarantee you has never happened before.
I love it, man. Leroy Hoard. This has been too long. I feel terrible that it's been 3-4 years since we caught up on the Go Long pod, I want to say, because when we did it, I'm like, oh my God, we have to get Leroy back. And that's how you say it. We got to get Leroy Butler on here. It's Leroy, baby. Yeah. You gotta have that emphasis on the Lee. So, well, maybe we'll get you two together sometime.
Yeah, I think we played against each other.
I gotta
say. He was in Green Bay.
Well, I mean, yeah, those 96, 97, 98 Viking Packers games, those were some battles.
Yep, absolutely.
Some visions of 44 just snatching souls. I mean, you epitomized the glory era of pro football. I know we're all biased on what we grew up on, but for me personally, it's the 1990s. I mean, that's really when men were men. There was violence, and you ran the ball how God intended running backs to run the ball. It was downhill. A lot of Leroy Hoard coming at you fast. But man, when you look back at your era, what do you think really did separate you from other backs of that time?
I just think that I played hard, but had a level of quickness and speed that people never associated with my game. They always associated power. And once you do that and then somebody runs away from you, you're shocked. And I was able to play a long time without people ever truly realizing that, hey, I wasn't that slow. You know, I just got this short yardage moniker put on me. And so everybody just assumed he was a big bruiser, but I was only 220 pounds. So when people
big shoulder pads is what did it. Those monster shoulder pads.
Everybody thought I was so much bigger. And I remember when I got done with football, I was getting irritated by it. And somebody said, man, I thought you were bigger. I said, have you ever tried tackling me? How the hell would you know? Right? I said, so like, it was just kind of one of those things where people call me a fullback, but I never blocked. Right? Like, it's just, you just kind of, you know, deal with it. You know, I got to the point in my career where if I have to prove to you what I can do on a football field, then you don't want me on your team. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you should already know what I'm bringing to the table. And so I feel that same way in life. Like, the more you have to prove what you're capable of and not have evidence of it in what you do on your daily, you know, job, whatever it is. If people ask you that question and you haven't shown them enough, then they don't want you there. And that's kind of how I viewed it. So it's part of getting older and being comfortable in your own skin and understanding, you know, the thing that probably is the most annoying about sports to me is we want to blame a guy for all of our team's failures. And there's so many moving parts on a football field that one little teeny thing could go wrong and it could throw a whole playoff. And I don't think people understand that. They just look at, hey, the quarterback threw a pick. Well, if the left tackle missed his block and the quarterback had to throw a ball in hopes that the wide receiver would get in that area and the wide receiver didn't get in there, things go wrong, you know? And it's not like basketball and baseball. Basketball, if I shoot 40% from three, I'm damn near a Hall of Famer. Baseball, if I bat 300. Well, from a football perspective, we look at the other side of that. You're failing 70% of the time, and you're failing 60% of the time. Because football is 100% sport. Have you ever heard a coach say, hey, your coach You can win 55-10, right? You interview a coach after a game, and he goes, "You know what? We did okay, but we got a lot of things we got to work on. There were some things I didn't." It's 100% sport,
Yeah.
so you have to kind of. Fans don't put it in perspective, but I think players can, and players get to it. The only time players don't is when the media pounds them on. Well, why you only had this? Why you only had that? I knew when I was playing. If you play running back for Bill Belichick, you're gonna have 30 carries one week and 5 the next week. And it's like go look at his career.
Yeah.
And you just have to learn how to handle all that stuff when people come to you and say, "Why did you only have 5 carries?" Right? Nowadays, players will say, "Talk to the coach." Right? But back then, it was like, "We're winning. Let's let's if you got a problem, you think you could do more, go talk to the coach." But I'm not going back and forth with the media.
That's a refreshing mindset because if I'm Leroy Hoard, I'm looking back to those '98 Vikings and I'm saying, my God, if Gary Anderson just makes a kick,
Yeah, I'm
we're
going to the Super
legends.
Bowl. And you know what? The thing that you learn in sports, right? That every time you go out there to perform, that missed field goal could be you. And so when you talk about it, you talk about it accordingly,
Hmm.
right? I fumble the ball a lot, right? I can't really know when it cost me a game or I can tell you pretty much every time. It cost me one time against Ohio State, right? But it's the worst feeling in the world. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I think because of me growing up in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans, that I can take criticism. It doesn't bother me, right? Like you know, I remember a reporter asked me one time after a game, um, he goes, "Did you hear the fans booing you, when you guys went in halftime?" So I would have booed my ass too, right? We played like crap. Like though that's you got to be a big boy about it, right? Like you're front and center. There's 65, 70,000 people watching you that parked their cars in the flats on Friday night to have a good tailgating spot. Got hammered and ate too much food before kickoff even started, right? Get liquored up during the game. They want to see their team perform, right? And I would tell fans that, believe me when I tell you, it's not for lack of effort. Sometimes things just don't work out and you don't know what to do to fix it and you're miserable. You're miserable. But here's the other thing I learned: the world's going to keep spinning, whether you win by 20 or lose by 20. And you're going to have another game next week. So is this bad game on this Sunday going to affect you next Sunday? And so you kind of put it in perspective.
I got to think that's what sustained you through an entire decade, 90 to
Yeah.
99, where, I mean, you're playing for the Cleveland Browns and your team is just moving to a new city
Right.
overnight. I mean, fans are ripping apart the stadium. You're there. It's
Yes.
got to be a eerie, just surreal scene there. I want to get your memories on that too. I mean, Carolina, your career basically could have ended there. I mean, you had a cup of Joe there. It felt like to
Right.
Minnesota Resurrection, right? You're
Right.
you're scoring touchdowns. You're reeling off all these highlight runs and receptions, and I mean, you've lived it all. But it is that mindset, right? Like you can't wallow in
Well,
self pity or be soft minded. You've got
I,
to be hard and shit. Where you grew up,
right.
that's going to make you hard.
Right. Exactly. I would always tell people there ain't nothing you got inside of you that could break me. Right. So start there. Then I also tell people, everybody looks at me as a big guy. I'm probably 215 right now. Right. I said, you realize when I was in the huddle, I was the little guy. So think of the mentality that I had to play with. So while you're looking at me as a big guy, I had to go on the field and fight like hell, like a little guy. And it's just something about it. When we left Cleveland, I was 25 years old. So, you know, I lived in 2 months, I lived in 4 cities because I went
Wow.
from Cleveland to Baltimore. In Baltimore, I bought a house and the builder had a deal. If you're not here in within a year, we'll buy it back from you. So it seemed like a good deal. I got moved to Carolina before the house was done. So I couldn't even get my money back. I had to wait until the house was built before they could, you know. So there was that. Then I went to Carolina and Tim Biakabatuka, if you remember, he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I ended up in Carolina. They had a guy named Anthony Johnson. When they brought me in, here's what they said. We're going to pay you your contract or whatever. But if Anthony Johnson works out, we're going to move you again. So I was there for a month. I signed a lease on Friday. On Monday, they told me that I was getting moved again. And I had just put a deposit on an apartment and they wouldn't give me the deposit back.
What?
Right. So now I already have a place in Florida, right? I still have my place in Cleveland. I had the place in Baltimore. Then I had an apartment in Carolina, right? So then I got to Minnesota on a Tuesday. On Sunday, I was the starting running back for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, if I could explain to people what that's like, if I took everything that you had and then dropped you off in China and told you you had to communicate, you had to learn, you had to figure it out, and your new job starts on Sunday. I had I knew no offense. The offense was totally different. The terminology was different. Everything was different. So we're there every night trying to, learn as much of the offense as I can. Because keep in mind, most of these guys have been doing it for a couple of years, or they had camp and they played 5 games, 6 games. So we play the Oakland Raiders. They were in Oakland. Um, and the first series of the game, they call a play. I'm like, cool, I know that. Brad turns around and goes, purple, purple, purple. Like, Brad, what do purple mean? I had no idea. So we watching the film of that game that went into overtime. So yikes. So not only had to know more football, right? We win the game. We watch the film the next day, and all you can see is me in the backfield going like this because I have no idea what anybody's talking about. And that was the most terrifying football I've ever played in my life. Not Rose Bowls, not playoff games, not, no. The most nervous I've ever been on a football field was that game in Minnesota, not having any idea of what to do and having to rely on a guy I just met to tell me what to do.
You ran for 108 yards on 20 carries and an overtime win that game too in China.
Yes.
Not too bad, Leroy.
No,
Not
it
bad.
wasn't. It was muddy and rainy. I was cramping up because running in mud is tough. It's harder on your legs and stuff like it was.
Yeah,
Holy smokes!
yeah. Oakland Elmira County Coliseum, like the
Oh yeah,
worst stadium in football.
you had to go when they bus you in. You went in like jail buses because people were throwing stuff at you. So you had the cages on the windows, right?
Oh my god. I remember just covering a game there as recently as like 2016, and you're just walking down like the bowels of the stadium. There's like wires
Right.
hanging from the ceiling, and it's like
There's a
like
bridge, and you walk
leaks and
down.
rips.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it looked like the thing was going to collapse at any moment. And that so take me back to the Ninth Ward. Then, what was life really like for you then? I mean, I we hear the
Um,
stories from what you got Tyler Matthew, Leonard Fournette, so many guys that have
Me
come
and
through there,
we
and
all
it
went to the
makes you
same.
different.
We all went to the same high school.
Whoa,
Yeah, we all
wow.
went to the same high school. So there's arguments in New Orleans who's the best running back, Leonard Fournette or Leroy. And Leonard Fournette, I think he ran for like 4,000 yards in college,
Oh yeah.
right? Um, but I told them, I said I ran for 1,500 yards and averaged 14 carries a game.
Let them know.
I I remember one game in high school. We were playing a team, and I had 300 yards at halftime, and coach told me I could go sit in the stands with my mom. This is a high
Did
school
you
game.
go? You had it up?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it like what I would say is that growing up, you know, just that's the real South, right? Some of the circumstances and situations you have to live through, I've never experienced anywhere else that I've ever lived. Um, and and I would say to people before you walk up on somebody, make sure you know a little bit about their background. Because one of the things I hated about the NFL was it almost neuters your athletes. And when I say that, I mean that people can walk up to you any old kind of way and not look at you as a man, but look at you as a football player, knowing you ain't gonna do nothing. And I didn't grow up like that. I grew up if you come up to me as a man, I'm gonna handle you like a man, and we gonna, you know, if it's cordial, it's cordial. But if you come at me in a disrespectful way, you're supposed to get a 2 piece and a soda, you know? And so it took a lot of getting used to not be able to be a man in those situations. You know damn well a lot of what people yell to athletes and what people say about athletes and about men, if you saw them in the street and you said something like that, you would get your ass beat.
Yes.
And so that was one of the things that I hated about it. Other than that, I was fortunate to play football in three of the greatest places to play football. And that's in Michigan, in Cleveland, and in Minnesota. And and I was a different I was the same football player at all three spots. Everywhere I played, nobody asked me to be anything other than what I was. Right? Go out there, make people miss, fight like hell, give me everything you got, and we can work with that. And from the time I left Michigan till I got to Cleveland, till I went to Minnesota, I was able to be, I never had to change what type of player I was. And this is all through high school or whatever. So I was fortunate in that the adjustments that people have to make going from team to team, everybody looked at me and say, "Oh, we need a running back like that." And so I never had to say, "What do you need me to do?" Just go do you,
Yeah.
right? Break
Third and
tackles,
37.
right?
Run, Leroy, run.
Which is the craziest thing in the world because the coach, when Denny sent me out there, we were on like our own 5 yard line. He goes, just give us some room so we don't have to punt out of the back of the end zone. That was the whole right. That was
Yeah.
the whole idea behind it.
So I just what did you see in the Ninth Ward then? In the real South? Or is
So
it
so
a world we can't comprehend?
somebody was like, I mean, probably once a week there was a dead body under a bridge. gunshots every night. Um, you know, I lived, my grandparents lived there for 50 years, right? So they knew everybody's mom, their mom's mom. So nobody messed with my grandparents. Me and my mom and my sister, my brother lived across the street. My uncle lived in like a house right next to us. So we were all pretty close. Um, People doing like when you grow up in those situations, one thing you do appreciate and you understand is people doing what they have to do to survive, right? It's a different world. It's people doing what people got a little hustle going, in the hood. Somebody works on cars, somebody doing hair, you know, somebody do it. It's just that's that's life down there. And so, you know, there were people selling drugs and stuff like that. And I would say my experience with drug dealers is a little bit different in that the drug dealers in the Ninth Ward, who keep in mind my grandparents knew their dads and their moms or whatever, they would never let me get caught up in it. They say, "Hey man, you got a chance to get out of here," right? So, like everybody in the Ninth Ward kept me away from it, right? There wasn't no, you know, if you needed something, don't worry about it. You ain't gotta pay us back. Here's, go do this. So I I have a different understanding when people don't have and some of the things they have to do to let ends meet,
Yeah.
and so, you know, like I don't talk about it like it makes me harder. I don't talk about it like, I'm better than anybody or I had it harder than anybody. I just talk about it to let people know where I came from and how I got here. And sometimes it's hard for people to comprehend, you know, how tough it was. When I was growing up, if somebody stole something, you would rather get caught by the person you stole it from than the cops. Because the cops was gonna take it and then you were still gonna be on the hook for stealing it. It was just a different animal. We had the worst police force in the world when I was growing
Wow.
up. The cops were just as crooked as the people. So the politicians were all crooked. Hey, when I went to Michigan, I got an absentee ballot for governor of Louisiana. And this is all you need to know about Louisiana. My two choices for governor were Edwin Edwards, who had already been kicked out of office for embezzling money. But some reason he got to run again, right? And you know who he was running against? David Duke.
Wow.
Yes. So that's just a snippet of what goes on in Louisiana, right? Now, kudos to the citizens of Louisiana because you took the crook over to the morally corrupt,
Yeah.
right? And guess what he did? Stole money and they had to throw him in jail.
Democracy in action, everyone. Gotta love it.
Right. Right. That was
Jeez.
my two choices in a democracy.
Unbelievable. But I mean, I would think there is all of this is going to help you as this running back taking on Greg Lloyd, Levon Kirkland in the old school
Yes.
AFC Central some
Ooh,
way somehow, right? Like how
dude.
does it make you as
It
a 90s running back?
it just what it does is that there's two things that happen when you play football in the NFL, and depending on what position. You play running back, you're gonna get hit on every play. They're gonna chicken wing you walking by, give you a little chicken wing, give you a little bump. When you get tackled, they're gonna mush you because they're gonna try to break you, right? My background is like, you ain't gonna break me. Dude, I got it. Like you're not gonna break me. And I would always say, See me in the fourth quarter. Because if you can keep hitting me like this in the fourth quarter, I'm going to shake your hand. And in 10 years, it never happened. In 10 years, everybody got tired of hitting me. Right? Like you just and they give it that look like you're still going. Yep. Because that's that's what this job is. That's what
You
you got
remember
to
that
do.
look? You saw it in somebody's eyes? Anything come to
All the
mind?
time. They look
Yeah.
at you crazy. I remember one time, and here's what people don't understand. Okay. Say I'm 220 pounds. I run a seam route. And I'm running and the linebacker's covering me, and I think I'm got decent speed. I'm not Eric Metcalf fast, but I can move a little bit. And I look, and 99 is running with me. That's Levon Kirkland. Now, I don't think people understand. Levon Kirkland was 295 pounds. I could not run away from him.
We've had him on the pod. We try to tell people 295 and
You
he could
do
run.
not, as
Freak.
a middle linebacker. So you like they say, what's the difference between college and the NFL? And here's what I could tell you it is. I would say add 30 pounds to whatever position you're playing against, right? Because you understand, running backs are pretty consistent from college to the NFL. One might be faster or quicker, but the range of size of running backs has always been consistent throughout the history of football. You have some scat backs, you have some Eric Metcalfs, you have some guys that are 215, 220, which is like probably the ideal running,
Yeah.
225, and then you have your big people. You might have a couple of big Christian Okoye. You got Derrick Henry right now, right? So you have those guys. It's never changed. You always, every time you open up a roster, you're going to see the same size guys playing running back. Maybe more skilled, maybe a little faster, but the same size. But on defense, whatever you went against in college, add 30 pounds and take about 2/10 off their 40. Right? So you might have an outside a rush in or a linebacker that in college he was 240 and ran like a 4.6. Okay, now that guy's 265, 270 and run a 4.4, a 4.5. So, like, yeah, it's mind blowing to stand in a huddle with offensive linemen that you want to just go a piece. Because this is what I played with Orlando Brown, Zeus, Tony Jones. When I was in college, I played with Greg Skrepnik, Jumbo Elliott, Steve Everett, right? So I always had big guys. When I was in Minnesota, the right side of our offensive line averaged 345. Average. So, like, it was just to see guys. I used to watch offensive linemen and defensive linemen had dunk contests. So when people talk about a guy that sucks in the NFL, I know how athletic these guys are,
Yeah.
and I've seen it. And so it's never going to be a lack of athleticism that a guy that gets to that point doesn't make it.
What's the most memorable collision that you had in this crazy world? I think at one point you were hospitalized with a concussion, and you probably had more
Yes.
concussions than you even
So
know.
you remember the story Bill Belichick told when they were talking about concussions, and he said, I had a guy who was healthy and I sat him out an extra week.
This
That
guy.
was me. Yep. Um, and here's the kicker. big, strong, tough Leroy. You know how I got knocked out? I was running down on kickoff. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a tackler. I just hit people and hope they fall down. But everybody had to play special teams, so I'm hauling ass. I'm telling you what, I'm the first one down there. I elude all the tackles. I'm going and knock this little bitty punt kickoff returner out. I'm canceling him. He's done. Now, my form as a tackler was poor at best because, well, I'm not a tackler. So I turned my head just a little bit and he hit me right here. And I was in the hospital. Now, that's not the worst part of it. You know what the worst part of that is? He was the smallest guy in the NFL.
Who was it?
Ice Cube. He played for
Ice
the
Cube.
Browns. He played for the Browns, Gerald McNeil. He
Oh,
played for the Browns, and before I got there, he went and played for I think for the Oilers at the time. So
he just hit it right.
it just right now when I was in Minnesota, and things get crazy because you have coaches that you catch a screen pass, and here's how a screen pass works: you go under the kick out, back outside. Under the kick out, back outside. The coaches get under there, go back outside. Well, I was kind of a cutback runner, right? And so I went under that, and then I saw a little room, and I turned to cut back. And next thing you know, it felt like everybody was taking my picture. Out, done, right? So I can't really say. And then they come out, and then let me tell you something. The test for a concussion back then,
Oh
it
God.
was crazy. Like you say, what quarter is it? I'm like, I just look up at the board. Third, right? Right. What down is it? I'm like, second. I'm looking at, right? Do you know who hit him? And at that point, I said, not for nothing, but if I'd known that that dude was going to hit me like that, I would have got the hell out of his way. No, I don't know who hit me. So it's just, one of those things, man. You
It's
just,
good. You're good, Leroy. Get back in there.
yeah. No, actually, they helped me out for the rest of the game because I
Good.
was, yeah,
Good.
I was. So, like, I just think the whole concussion thing, we can put it on somebody, but I think everybody was ignorant to the facts about concussions. And when it's everybody, even fans, even, training staffs, coaches, doctors, there just wasn't enough knowledge of what was really happening at that time, right? And because most people associate concussions with hits, that's not what happens.
Mm.
What happens in a concussion is you could get pushed from behind and get a concussion because it's your brain being jarred in your
Yeah.
skull.
Sloshing
Right,
around in there.
right. So that doesn't necessarily come with a hit, but everybody thinks that.
And I know you went through it, right? I mean,
Oh,
after you retired and you've been pretty open about this all, you've dealt with the aftershock of a brain trauma. I mean, Andre Waters, Dave Dewerson, Junior Seau,
yeah.
those suicides had a pretty profound effect on you. I don't want to put words in your
They
mouth, but
well, they
early
did for this
2000s,
reason.
what did you go through, Leroy?
It's one of those situations where you don't know what's wrong, right? There's no guidance as to what direction you should take to kind of just, you know, get through it. So, for example, one of the hardest things for me was I was so used to living in this world of accountability, in a world of owning your mistakes, in a world of, you know, conversation and being honest about what's going on. And then you get into the real world and nobody believes that crap. Nobody. Nobody. You ever call somebody, you ever say, hey, man, I was expecting something here. Ah, well, yeah, we got to, like, no. Nobody lives by what they expect athletes to live by. And I think I became a little bit bitter about that, that I lived in a world that nobody could live in, right? So that was tough. My body had broken down to the point where I don't I don't think I could have played football, even though teams called me for 2 years after I was done. I mean, Minnesota told me just come back and if you only come back for the second half of the season, that's fine, right? Like everybody had, and I was just like, after my last season, I played the last year with a torn rotator cuff.
Right.
So the day after the season, I had shoulder surgery. Here's the kicker: I was supposed to have knee surgery, and I couldn't have the knee surgery because I couldn't walk on crutches. So I had the 2 months with the arm. Then when I could walk on crutches, I had knee surgery. I
Oh,
had to be on crutches for 8 weeks with the knee surgery, right? So by the time I was healthy, it was October. So like, what was I gonna, you know? So I was banged up. I was confused about, and then seeing all the other stuff going on. Like I started thinking, damn, am I crazy too? Right? Because I couldn't understand what was going on. Like I couldn't understand why everybody else wasn't living by these set of rules that we were expected to live by, And so I think that was the hardest thing for me to get used to. The hardest thing to go into the real world and realize that when it comes to how people treat their athletes, everybody's a hypocrite, right? That there's no way you could live by those rules. There's no way you could. I mean, you could even go as far as reporters, right? And how they come after players and how they expect guys to, and they say, oh, you have to talk to us, right? Like, just, that part of it was like, I was good with the media and all that, but I hold them accountable all the time. I remember telling a reporter one time. So the way it works, and here's what people have to understand: you play a game, you go in the locker room, the coach talks for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then the reporters can come in the locker room.
that's right.
So while you're changing, while you're showering, or whatever, they're waiting by your they're waiting in front of your locker. So people would ask me questions, and I'm like, so you watched the whole game. You took notes during the game, right? I said, I haven't watched any film. I haven't had any opportunity to like see what actually happened because my only perspective of the game is through my eyes. I don't know what's going on either side of the ball. I don't know what's any of that. And I go, and you're college educated and you get paid to be a journalist. And that's the best question you could come up with. But I did it. I did it because wait, if you're gonna hold me accountable
Yeah.
and you're gonna ask me to, if I fumble and I got to stand up a man about it and answer questions about, letting the team down and all this, I'm not gonna let you come in here and just say anything. So like I never had a problem with anybody unless they kind of, you know, like I would ask them, I said, what are you trying to accomplish here? You know, and then they would always hide behind, well, we're just trying to get information so we can share that with the public. And what happens is they use that so much. Now players use Twitter and Instagram because they don't want to deal with it,
You would
right?
have been. I would have loved to have covered you after those games because because you're going to be real. You're going to be
Right.
authentic.
That's
Your
it.
emotions are going to be at an all time high. I mean
That's
that's
it.
why I like being in a locker room like right after a game because you're not going to get sanitized bullshit from Leroy Hoard. Like you're going to get
But
something
here's
real,
what you have to
even if you're
do.
pissed off. That's
Here's
it's
what
real.
here's the problem with all that is that even if you answer questions real, right? I found that and I would tell them, I said, you write what I say, I'll tell you what I mean. You don't have to guess, you don't have to figure it out. So that when I see these quotes in the paper, I want them to be this. Not what you think, not what you don't ask me a question, right? You know, write your own article without
Right.
comments. And so from that standpoint, I remember somebody asked me about when the team was moving to Baltimore, right? And keep in mind the players have no idea what's going on. We don't we so but because everybody the owner left, all the front office people were gone, the only people to answer for all this stuff were the players. And we had no idea what was going on. So I remember telling the reporter, I said, hey, this is all I know. I love it here. I would like to be here. But when your boss say, hey, your next check is gonna be in Baltimore, guess where Leroy's going? I don't know what to tell you. Right? That's real. That's
Yeah.
real. That's reality. That's how and so people could take it however they want. But if I put you in that situation, you gonna just come home and say, honey, we gotta move to Baltimore. And that's it.
What and I apologize. One of my neighbors just decided to mow our lawn here at 8 o'clock at night, so we're gonna get a little background noise. We're also building a house in the country where we won't have neighbors. So sorry about that, Leroy.
That's all right.
But after when you were done though, so you're done with football,
Uh-huh.
you're moving on with your life. Was it like 2006? I think I had read you had a moment that was pretty profound where you're dealing with some depression and maybe some suicidal thoughts like those other guys that I mentioned earlier? How did you kind
Listen,
of get to this
I
point where you're mentally sharp, you're entertaining as hell on a podcast like this, loving life?
right. Well, and here's what I would say. And I didn't know how to explain this because they would always ask, are you suicidal? And I said, not to seem crass or something like that. It's like, I'm not one of those people that think about it, right? Like, if I ever got to that point, it would be done. That's just my nature. And so when I say that, people kind of step back and go, well, what did he mean by that? And I say, I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Probably not, right? And anytime that I felt at my lowest of lows, somebody else would do it and it'd be a wake up call. So maybe somebody was looking out for me because I never got to that point. Um, but I would say it wasn't a depression thing. It was kind of a like you had this thing for so long in your life, right? And there's nothing that's going to fill that void. And the friends that you had and made are still playing football, and now you're an outsider. So the only group that, and keep in mind, this is my own doing. I know my friends to this day didn't think that, right? I know the Minnesota Vikings didn't think that. I know the Cleveland Browns didn't think that, but I felt that way. That if I wasn't playing football, I'm not just gonna go around, right? Um, and then you kind of try to figure out, okay, what can I do? Because keep in mind, my body's still like my body's going through some stuff. Like I had a bunch of surgeries, and just to try to stay reasonably healthy. And so I'm going through all this. I'm having these surgeries while all this other stuff is going on at the same time. So when people say, is that depression? I would say, no, I was just kind of in a rut. Like it happens, right? Like it happens to everybody where you just blah, and so we've named that, we've given that a name because for some reason everybody think there's a drug that can fix it. But I don't know if I was depressed or suicidal or any of that. Like like people say, were you suicidal? No, I probably would have did it if I was. I'm not gonna sit around and mull over it. And that's I don't know any other way how to tell them no, I wasn't, other than saying that, right? But it was a period of time where I like just need to figure out what to do. So I did some stuff, and then believe it or not, down here in Miami, Robert Smith had a radio show that he was just doing on the weekends. And he was like, "Hey man, why don't you just come do this show with me?" Right? Why don't you come do this show with me and um, see if you like it. Now, me and Robert could not be more opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like I like the laughs and the shenanigans. He likes talking about Formula One, right? And so that's just like we're best of friends, but our personalities couldn't be any farther from each other. And so, but then I started doing it, and then they said, "Hey, why don't you do it on Mondays after football, and then Fridays before?" And I started doing that, um, and then I just kind of like started doing it, and it's like you know and I tell people this: the sports is killing me, and sports is saving my life at the same time, right? Because I get to talk about it, I get to watch it, I get to follow it, I get to, and it's exciting, and yet my body's breaking down, and and I like, and I
You're
like,
dealing with stuff still right now,
oh
physically?
God, yes.
Yeah.
I think last week I'm going to physical therapy right now because a couple of weeks I got up and I couldn't lift my arm over. My arm was like, I'm like, what happened? Right? But I had rotator cuff surgery, so they think they have sutures in there and something might be loose or something.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
like,
my God. So it's just
right,
day to day. You're
just
feeling
day to
something.
day, but the pain part of it, I'm used to. But when you can't move or you're not mobile, that's the stuff that becomes difficult. But yeah, other than that, like, yeah, man, I do radio. I get to run my mouth. I have a setup at my house. So if I'm not feeling good, I can do it from my house. Right. So
Hell
it's great.
yeah.
It's
It's
great.
perfect.
Yep. My only
Well,
regret, they say, you have any regrets about? Say, yeah, my only regret is they don't pay me by the word. I'd be so
we
rich.
we'd love that as well at Go Along. We write stories that are probably a tick too long. So let's make it happen, Leroy. Maybe we can put our
Yeah.
heads together and
But it's
you.
like, other than that, it's fun. I like following, sports. I like telling stories. I like, I do a show with a fan. So we get into it a lot because a lot of times fans direct the issue of a game to what they see and not about what happened, right? And so we go back and forth a lot about that because everybody's like, "Oh, this guy's terrible. This guy's terrible." I'm like, "He'll be on the team next year." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because there's only a handful of players in the NFL that play offensive linemen that can play three positions on the offensive line, and every team wants one of those guys,
Yeah.
whether they suck at it or not."
I think this is a good one to end on too, Leroy, because you've got some intimate knowledge. You had the boots on the ground once upon a time. This is what everybody's talking about. Well, maybe not everybody, because it is a little disturbing and disgusting. Did you know in the mid '90s that Bill Belichick one day would prey on women less than a third of his age?
Hey, you know what my motto is? Whatever their agreement is, whatever their understanding is with their relationship, ain't none of our damn business,
Eh,
right? Like we see people. Come on, man. We saw what's his name? Lyle Lovett, not Lyle Lovett. Was the that was with Julia Roberts. Lyle, the artist. Lyle, was it Lyle Levitt's?
I don't know, man. That
Yeah,
that predates me a little bit.
yeah.
Sorry,
But I'm just
listeners.
saying, we see couples together all the time, and you go, how the hell
All
did that
right,
happen?
we're
Nah,
trying to
dog.
get you to rip Bill Belichick,
No,
Leroy. That
no. Listen. You can't. The way I look at it is this way: if two people are happy and two people are in agreement of why they're together and they're happy together with that agreement, then that's two happy people. We need more happy people on this damn earth. There's too many old, curmudgeon, mean, grumpy people. So maybe they all need to find somebody half their age or a quarter of their age, right? Like I'm just saying,
all right.
like we
Okay.
like that's I'm not gonna be on that. Like we don't know what their situation is. We see, like, you walk the streets all the time. You go to a game or whatever, and you'll see a couple together, and you go, "That happened, right?"
Yeah.
We all do always do it. It's human nature. And so, guess what? Whatever they got going on, it works for them. It
Does
ain't
it
none
work
of
for the
our business.
University of North Carolina though? With the wild part is Mister like do your job, don't be a
Yeah,
distraction. It's
yeah.
kind of become a little bit of a distraction for the Tar
You know,
Heels.
you know why? Because ain't no football yet.
Okay.
You wait till football starts. Okay? That man wants to coach. And I will say this about Bill Belichick. If you ask any player, you have never been more prepared to play a football game than you were when Bill Belichick was your coach. And that I promise you that. Before the games, you know how the coaches would go and shake everybody's hand?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Belichick would tell all 46 guys dressed about a player that they would play against on that day. Every week. For every year he was the coach. That level of commitment is unheard of. And so, was he tough? Absolutely. Did he have the personality of an oyster? Absolutely. But as far as respect for what that man did and how he did it, and how some of the guys that he played when he was the coach at Cleveland, some of the guys there played their best football of their career. I ain't gonna never say nothing bad about Bill Belichick. Ever. Ever. Because, like, he should have never got fired. Keep in mind, we were damn near leading the division when they announced in the middle of the season that the team was leaving, and then we had blackouts and booze and all that. And I would ask you, whatever you do in life, could you work under those conditions that we were asked to go play football in front of? And you could
Probably not.
say, you got to be a pro, you got to be a pro. But I'm telling you, everybody was there to boo Art Modell. They weren't there to cheer for the Browns. They wanted to go there and express their feelings about what was happening. And so we didn't finish the season off that well, and they fired Bill Belichick. And Cleveland will forever be known as the team that fired a 6-time Super Bowl champion. Think about that. So, like, even now, no matter what people tell me, you know what I say? Even down here, everybody's going off on Mike McDaniel down here. Be patient. Be patient. Like, sometimes new coaches need to learn like new players,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, stop making it sound like, oh, you just got a new job. You're supposed to be the best version of you right away. That
Well, you,
doesn't work like that for anybody.
you said on this show in 2021 when everybody was screaming the opposite, Baker Mayfield should be the quarterback in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but like
Yeah.
a little patience there would have
Well,
behooved the
here,
Browns.
first of all, people need to be truthful about the circumstances, okay?
With
And
the
here's what I
shoulder.
would say. The circumstances of why Kevin Stefanski is still the coach. The success that he's had with the number of different quarterbacks that he's had is unheard of. So stop it.
No
Okay?
doubt. Yeah.
Okay? That's a fact. That's a fact. Whatever you think about Kevin Stefanski, look at his production based on what he's had to work with. The injuries to Nick Chubb, the injuries on defense, right? The craziest thing that happened was Callahan leaving. People don't realize that. That dude is an excellent offensive line coach. One of the best to ever do it. Okay? Now let's go to Baker. He had a contract that was up. He tried to play through the shoulder. He couldn't do it. And everybody just said he sucked. They didn't put any context behind it. They didn't put anything. No, he sucks. So the Browns let him go. Right? Now, I tell you what. I'm going to be honest with you. If I was the Browns owner, you know what I would have right now? Baker Mayfield as quarterback and $230 million in my pocket. Just saying. I'm just saying. Now, keep in mind, at the time, right? I'm not mad at the owner for signing Deshaun Watson. You're Cleveland. You got to give a contract that Deshaun don't get back on the plane and go somewhere else. I get that. I understand that. It didn't work out. And guess what? Hey, people out there, you know what? You can make all the right decisions in your life. It don't mean they all gonna work out. Put your big boy pants on. Be an adult. Every right decision that you've made in your life did not work out. So it happens in sports. You know, now the only thing I would say about the Deshaun thing, okay, if you need a quarterback, you're not going to sign a quarterback that may get suspended for 10 games because you're throwing away a year. I don't care how good he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only problem I had with that. It wasn't resolved. You signed him to all that money, and now you have a quarterback that hadn't played for 2 years. So if there's any questions or any...
Also the most like vilified athlete in the league.
I don't care. You know what?
I'm just saying mentally, he was
You know
kind
what I
of
can-
broke. By the time he was out there, he was
Hey.
kind of broken. His confidence.
Hey, let's put our big boy pants on, okay? And let's have a conversation about the realities of society, right? And here's what I'm going to say. There's a lot of things going on in the world. You have to separate the person from the job, okay? Meaning that we all know how good Deshaun Watson was. The other stuff, I mean, kind of put him in a bad light. But we've had a lot of jackasses playing football.
I'm saying I don't think Deshaun Watson was able to separate the storm
Right.
from the
Yeah,
quarterbacking.
it
He
seems
was
it seems
he
it
was
seems
different.
that way. It seems that way. Um and I stood by him and I'm giving him all opportunities because guess what? I can say all the stuff he got caught up in was low rent. It was terrible. It put him in a bad light and it was well deserved. And then on the other side, I can say, but he's a hell of a quarterback. I ain't going to eat dinner with him or we ain't going to kick it, but he can play quarterback. We've had people like that in sports. Stop acting like all of a sudden this is an exception to the rule. No,
Right.
no. We got people that we work with on a daily basis that get caught up in some stuff. That's life. And what I can do is, as a grown man, as an adult, I can separate the artist from the person. Okay? Like, I can like your music, but hate you as a person. Like, that's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's life. Because guess what? If we live by the rules that people expect, all these athletes and teams, oh, that guy's jackass. He can't be on my team. Where would this country be if we did that? Right? Right?
Good point.
If we did that across the board to everybody and said these words, that guy's a jackass. I don't want him running nothing. Okay? So there. And I'm gonna just leave that at that because listen, I'm a people person. I'm not a political guy. All my comments have to do with people, right? Not have to do with nothing they do. Again, I look at people. Like you could be the best businessman in the world. And me personally, if you're a jackass, I can't do business with you. I don't care how much money you're gonna bring me. Right? Because that means I can't trust you. I'm always gonna be looking at you like, can't do it.
What that's a perfect note to end on, I think, Leroy.
Yeah.
That life advice for all. Man, Leroy Hoard, this was fantastic. Always good to catch up with you. Down there in South Florida, what's the station again? Where are you right now?
I am WQAM 10 to 2, 560. And so I've told you how I feel about the Browns. Everybody knows how I feel about the Browns, right? Um, the people in Minnesota were so nice to me when I got there. And part of the reason is because they needed a running back. And when I got there, I played pretty good. So it worked out. So I was there for 5 years. Um, had some playoff runs. It was really cool. Had fun, made a lot of friends. The city was unbelievable. I think I was fortunate in that I got to play in two of the
Yeah.
cities with some of the most rabid fans, and it was awesome. Okay. So I'm going to London.
Hey, there you go.
I'm
Perfect.
I'm going to London. I
Sets up
don't know.
beautifully.
I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna do it because again,
Swim.
no. I'm talking about how I'm gonna do when I'm get there. Do I go Vikings tailgate, Browns
Ooh.
tailgate? Do I
You need a
split my
jersey cut down the
time?
middle.
Do I like? Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I haven't
Yeah.
figured out what I'm gonna do, but I like. I'm going to the game. I think there's a fan experience out there. I'll put it on my Twitter. Um,
Perfect.
if you're wondering what my Twitter is at Big Mouth Leroy.
Big Mouth
Uh,
Leroy. I was gonna say that's where you get them.
right. So I'm gonna put it there. It should be really cool. Uh, People have been asking me since I said I was gonna go. Well, who are you gonna? Right. So because here, think about this. You want to hear something interesting? I've had I had more success in Minnesota, but I'm forever known as a Cleveland Brown.
Yeah.
Think
I was
about
gonna
that.
ask if that
Yeah.
was real. It feels that way, you know?
Yeah. I
It
had more than
does.
I think my last 2 years in the league, I had 25
Oh
touchdowns
yeah.
and like maybe 11, 1,200
Because
yards.
it's nostalgia, man. Like
Right.
the
Well,
last gasp of Brown's glory there, getting to the
yeah.
playoffs, winning the game. Then it
Yeah.
all fell apart.
Then it all
Thanks,
fell
Art
apart.
Modell. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I would say this. Politicians have the ability to put the proper twist on things.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this. When I first got to Cleveland, there was a diagram of a new stadium in Berea at Baldwin Wallace in the area, a new stadium. And they were saying this is going to be built in the next couple of years. It wasn't. I would say this. There ain't no way in hell the NFL would let that team leave if there was really a stadium in plan. Now, I make you all Mordell. I built Gund Arena and I built Jacobs Field. Who butters your bread? Who buttered that city's bread? And you don't build the stadium? I don't necessarily agree with the actions, but I can't be mad at them, right?
Right.
Like, but because people went out there and kind of put everything out there and put their twist on it, I don't think people really understood what was really going on. And that's unfair to everybody involved. The fans, the players, the Browns, the city. It was unfair to everybody to have to deal with that without actually knowing the real truth.
Leroy Hoard, let's have you back soon. All right.
All right.
Any day, anytime. I want to pick your brain and just talk ball with you. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, man.
All right. No problem. Have a good one.
You too.